So, just to get one more perspective over here from you, what should be the right, I know this is a tricky subject for all of us, what should be the right rental for a QSR in a mall?
That's not a tricky question. That is something which you should always keep in mind. When you are in high street, you can play around with the rent because you don't have CAM charges. When you are in a place like a mall, then you should typically this is ideal situation which is very rarely achieved, is 14% of your turnover should be going as rent. But if you have achieved 24, 25 also, you will survive, your nose will be above water. So you look at work out your figures, get your numbers right. If your rental cost is within 14 to 20% of your revenue, you are well above water.
That's not a bad situation to be in. I think most QSRs should be able to achieve those numbers, I guess, in the coming times.
I think most of the time they are able to achieve that. Now, sometimes they get stuck with the food cost with this inflation going on. But I should not be saying something, but I feel like sharing. You should aim for rev share. Keep your MG high. So that is how you are covered up. The upside is shared with the mall, and then you are also covered up.
So let's say when a DLF or anybody would do a rev share arrangement, would they be looking at opening up, would it be done for one single store, or would you be looking at having them across DLF malls, or and you'll give them a, let's say,
who
a bigger
doesn't
deal?
like to be successful and earn money? Tell me one single person. Even a developer who has made this beautiful mall, also the main aim is to get more money. So if you are able to give that to the developer, why would he stop? And he would invite you to his other malls. So it is, it is a relationship which is symbiotic relationship. If you are able to give numbers, why not?
Sure. No, but my question was that would there be a better deal if I was to book five restaurants across 5 DLF locations via one location when it comes to a revenue share arrangement?
No. Each and every developer's properties have their own P&L. So it is independent of having presence in the other P&Ls at all. So my P&L gets affected, I'm going to make noise. Sure. So it's something wherein, if I have a successful brand, I would recommend it to my fellow that, okay, here, see, so-and-so is, a good example is Big Chip, is moved on. Sure. So that way we share, but then a bulk deal and low rentals would not happen. That you should not even think of it.
Pramod, just to get a perspective, I think since cinemas is a very new area for restaurants to look at, how does the arrangement work? So now let's say if it's a cinema area, does he have to lease the area from you or from the mall operator if you're in, let's say, present in a mall?
See, it'll be specific from a developer to a developer. But most of the times, in case we are taking additional areas, there would be a strategic call that we are looking forward to a pre or a post experience for the consumer. And we'll end up either having our own format of a restaurant or basically end up subleasing the space from our and we are very flexible, when it comes to, because as I was suggesting earlier also to you, that for us it's more of a strategic need, wherein we are looking forward to a pre or a post experience for the consumer. So we would most of the times then not be looking at rev shares instead of a fixed this thing, because we are looking at the survival and a long-term arrangement, and we do want an influence in terms of being able to control the experience of the consumer who's walking in to watch the movies.
So again, coming back to the same point, so you're going to be the landlord for him.
That's true.
And what would be the typical rent in
it'll vary from an format to a format. Let's say if you were talking about a concept of a bar and a restaurant, then you're talking in the range of 10 to 11%. Okay. And if you're talking about a CDR, which is a casual dining restaurant, about 15% is what is the anticipation. And if you're talking about SDRs, which is a new terminology, which is a smart dining restaurants which have come up in Singapore, about 18% is what we would look at.
What can be the collective turnover one can expect in a cinema, quick service?
When you say collective turnover, you're talking about...
I mean, okay, let's say a monthly or a quarterly. What could be the, what do you expect he'll get out? What could be his revenues out of a cinema? Because it's still new for him.
As far as inside spaces of the cinemas are concerned, we'll never give up those spaces to any outsider.
I mean,
So
if
it
there
will
was
be
a,
only the spaces which are subleasable spaces, which are just adjacent to the cinema, which we'll end up taking and then subleasing those spaces. Anywhere, ranging between 1,500 square feet to 3,000 square feet of space, broadly should generate about 100 rupees per square foot, which is suggestive of about 600 to 700 rupees per square foot as their yield per month. So which is an easy yield to achieve for restaurants if they do it right.
okay. No, that's a pretty good model to have. So do you, how shall I put it? Do you actually take on, let's say, one QSR or one brand which you carry along or would prefer to carry along in various locations with you?
Not really as of now, but this is something which definitely is going to be, the case in future, because, if you look at the malls, the shopping centers, it's a very nascent phenomena in India. And most of the times, not to, say anything to ma'am or to DLF, or for that sake any developer, but most of the times the developer documents are only printed two sides. They're usually one-sided in favor of the developer, but they just printed two sides to save the monies from the developer's end. So, it's a difficult word out there when you're dealing with the developers. So they usually do not give you an option to take more spaces because they would like to monetize that, for their own this thing. But in the future, yes, it's bound to happen in that direction, wherein food and films would go together, and you'll find operators taking up larger spaces and, going around with multiple brands across locations. A typical example, again, one of the word chains of, a global conglomerate of cinemas, what he did was he started his own coffee shop. And in the country that he's represented today, he's bigger than Starbucks. Because his number of cinemas, he could in one day get about 900 outlets up and running. And Starbucks had to take more time doing that.
So, right now the way I'm seeing it is that the cinema is getting business for the restaurant. Do you see the restaurant getting business for the cinema?
As I said, it's more or less complementary, and that is why, food and films go together. It's complementary. There would be people who, if there is a good restaurant option available or a good food option available, there would be people who will get influenced by that fact that there is good food available. Let me watch a movie out there. Because end of the day, I don't control the software. The software which is running onto the film, Chennai Express is the same in DT cinemas, is the same in PVR cinemas, is the same in any other cinema. So I don't control that software. What I do is I control the software experience. In that software experience for us lies the food option for the consumer. And if it is a great option, and it's a gastronomic delight, then people would end up choosing that option. It's, just a natural choice to get into a better gastronomic place.
That's, I think, a great idea. Coming to you, the third location, which is, of course, going to be of much interest now that we're seeing such big townships coming in, is the residential location. What do you see is the future of putting up a restaurant within, let's say, a residential location which runs in, let's say, acres, or it's quite huge. So, I don't know how much developers have focused on, it's not about putting up a mall in that residential location, but as you said about community dining or having some places within within a big residential location. How do you think that is for restaurants or QSR?
Ritu, of late I've been giving a thought on that. In fact, day before yesterday, I had a discussion with people wherein we were thinking of what should go in a residential location. So, in my opinion, this is my personal opinion, it can differ with many people. In my opinion, you should have, a residential location demands of a very, very softer kind of outlet. Not very, because it attracts only the local people who are surrounded, but wherein you should have more home deliveries than sitting out spaces. But because when I go home, I would dial a convenient option wherein I want to that time rest. That is not my leisure. When I'm thinking of leisure, I'm thinking of shopping, I'm thinking of cinema, and I'm combining food in it. So I might not be in the same locality when I am in that particular colony or that particular buildings or residential outlets. So when I'm planning an outlet in residential location, it should be what he said was that SDR. small dining outfit with lots of home deliveries, which is where your price points will become low, your convenience to the residents would be high, and your outgoings will be low.
So today a lot of developers are actually thinking of putting up offices or, within
No,
there.
a lot of developers are putting in clubs which are having these outlets.
I think that's a mandatory thing that one has to.
And then it is also mandatory to have 5% of retail in a certain number of residential. So that will have a small dining restaurant, that will have a salon and a medical shop and a daily needs store. So it has to be, you have to curtail yourself. That time you can't think big because nobody from other residential area would come to your this thing.